Hello and welcome, everybody out there in Union Arena Land. We are coming at you with the eighth episode, I believe, of Through the Gauntlet. Today, we are going to be looking at Demon Slayer Nezuko Tanjiro and Demon Slayer Trio and Rengoku, all against the best in format green deck, as some people are calling it, GGO SAO. Sword Art Online is really leaving a huge impression. Today we have Div here. Hello, Div. You are going to be playing the Demon Slayer parts of this, but before you tell us about the decks, why don't you tell us about who you are, who you're with, and what you guys are working on?
Awesome. Thank you, Joey. It's a pleasure of being here. Thank you for having me and running through the gauntlet. It's a really cool concept and I'm very happy to jump on board for this one. My name's Dev. I am part of Haven TCG and Gaming. We were founded during COVID and we just wanted to provide a safe haven for all of the gamers who wanted to socialize during the pandemic. That evolved into us making content, card games. We started with Digimon, and now Union Arena is our biggest IP, I would say. And then over the years, we've started to make vlogs, different kinds of content. And our biggest one is going to be coming up, which is called Road to Regionals for Union Arena.
Nice. That is fantastic. So, how about we jump into the actual questions about everything going on? So, referencing Nezuko and Tanjiro first, how would you define the siblings' deck identity within Demon Slayer's lineup? What role does it like to fill, and what alternative roles could it potentially fill?
Yeah, well, the Nezuko and Tanjiro is one of the Twitch decks or swap decks that are running rampant around in Union Arena currently. It is definitely, I personally believe, better than Kirito and Asuna just because of the color trigger that it can have sometimes. Overall, for Kirito and Asuna, you can only swap with an Asuna in the back, but with this one, you can swap any Tanjiro in the front line with any character in the back line, which gives it a little more versatility, as well as gives you more options on who you want to swing with. Moreover, there's options of bumping characters that move up to make your 3Ks into 4Ks, and overall, in the whole Demon Slayer meta, where all of the decks have different kind of, I would say, gimmicks, I think yellow is one of the strongest ones, and the only other Demon Slayer deck that kind of like combats it is the Daki and Gyotaro deck, just because this one can swing more than 4 times, and Daki and Gyotaro can kind of delete their Gyotaro and bring another Gyotaro back. So kind of protects you from 5 swings potentially. So that's where I think it fits in the overall Demon Slayer meta.
Okay, so what kinds of hands or setups make you feel like you're in control from the start? What does your ideal start look like against most decks?
Awesome. Okay, so I know my top 7 cards that I want in my hand. I want a zero cost Tanjiro, a zero cost Nezuko, a zero cost Tanjiro or Nezuko. Specifically, I would also lean over to the 1 cost Nezuko, which can swap with a character during attack phase. So those are the first 3 cards. Then I would love a Step Tengen or the two energy generating Tanjiro 3 cost, which you can see on the board right now. And then one Nezuko raid is 100% mandatory. This whole deck revolves around Nezuko and swapping, and Nezuko is the piece that makes you swap a lot. So having one of those is mandatory. I do not think having a Tanjiro raid in hand is that necessary because you tend to find them. You have about 8 of them, 4 starter decks and 4 impact ones. I run 3 starter decks and 4 impact ones. So that's usually what I'm looking for. The last 2 cards can be anything. Particularly could be your double energy generators, or could be then another Nezuko as a raid fodder.
Fantastic. Do you feel like the deck has strong pivot options mid game if your main line gets interrupted at all? Since you are going up against a deck that interrupts your main line quite a
Yeah,
lot.
I think my mindset going into this game was basically I do not want to raid my Tanjiro impacts unless there's a Nezuko in my sideline, just because I know he will be sniping my Nezuko. I didn't want to raid that deck just because I know that
Is he cutting out for you as well as Arzin?
Yeah,
dies
I know.
and then oh yeah.
It's all right. Are you good now? You might just have to close out a
Yes, I'm
tab or
good now.
two. Okay, continue.
I'm good now. Uh where was I? Yes, pivoting mid game. I would say the first thing is Nezuko. I knew for a fact that he would snipe my Nezuko's because they're the main engine of the deck. So I would kind of wait to raid with my Tanjiro so I can pick a Nezuko back from sideline. That's another pivot that I was kind of played slow on and I didn't raid. Usually I am very aggressive with this deck. I wasn't as aggressive just because I know that the other deck can ramp up and kind of like clear my board pretty easily, especially
Mm,
with the 5 cost Tanjiro, a 5 cost Kirito that can block my impacts. But yeah,
okay. So, when you're piloting this deck, say as a newer player, something that they need to be aware of, what are the biggest decisions you face turn to turn, especially when you're ahead on the board?
definitely when I'm ahead on the board, I will AP draw for sure because I do not want to play out a lot of my cards in the front line, especially my Nezuko babies, because playing out your Nezuko babies can lead you to a point where you might hit a Nezuko raid from life and you won't be able to raid it. So I usually, first of all, try to play the Nezukos in the back. There's a Nezuko that if you play on the front line, minuses a character by 3k, but minuses by 1k. If push comes to shove and it's your last thing that is saving you from losing the game, play it in the back. Otherwise, play it in the, like you need to play it in the front to save yourself. Play it in the front. Otherwise, play it in the back. Keeping your Nezukos alive is very key because the Nezukos help you with your swap. Your Nezukos is the one that give Tanjiro impact. It's and the Nezukos are the ones that you want to have on board overall to run the deck. The other thing I always, and you'll see in these games, is I always kept the specials in my hand till the end and until I had to use them. So because I knew that that Kirito might be a problem, so I tend to keep the specials in my hand with this deck, just because I'm going to be doing chip damage anyways with my impact. So I keep the specials in my hand.
Fantastic. So, there's another person in the chat with the two of us right now, and you might remember them is Zarzin piloting GGO Sinon. Hi, welcome back. Would you mind
Yeah.
shouting yourself out before we jump into the specific matchup?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm Izarzan from Big Beard Pirates TCG, and we do UA content and other Bandai games. And I'm here with Sinon again. Obviously I'm a big Sinon enthusiast, and I've been running this deck, since it first came out. Honestly, that's one of the first decks that I proxied before Union Arena came out because I was just a big fan. So yeah, right now I'm just gonna be playing against the Rush deck, and since I'm a big green deck, I'm gonna have to worry a lot about the early game. So yeah, that's how it's gonna go.
Awesome. Now, against a fast combo aggressive deck like Siblings, how does your approach change from your usual game plan?
Yeah, like you said, it's very fast and it's very combo aggressive. And basically, I'm just trying to leverage, my BP of certain characters so that I'm able to, defend effectively. Especially my 1 cost Sinon and my 2 cost Sinon. They're sitting at pretty good, BP. One is 2,500, the other's 3K. So usually, the 0 cost can't really go over it unless it's the 0 cost Nezuko. That one can become a 2,500 if there's a Tundra, but usually it's not always in their hand. So yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to stimmy from their game plan.
And over to the other side of this, Div, going into this matchup, what role does the siblings deck want to take? Are you trying to race down GGO or force trades early?
I definitely with this deck, I'm looking to force trades for
Mm,
sure. Just because there is no point in rushing early because if I rush too early, he is going to see his raids or his life might have specials or color triggers that let you play a card. So I do not want him to fill his board that fast. I know he is going to take time to ramp up. So early on, maybe the first two turns, if my hand is good, I'll try to get some rush damage in, but then I tend to slow it down just so I know that if I go too much, I might potentially lose my impactors or my engines, or end up giving them too many cards in their hand where they have a choice of different plays they can do to disrupt my board.
So you did touch on about maintaining and protecting your combo that allows you to do so much. How do you deal with Sinon's control tools a bit more specifically? What's your way of outpacing their threats once they come down and start sniping off your board?
I think one of the things I do is I'll always sometimes try to have at least one chump blocker up in front, just because the Xenon's gonna do their snipe on my biggest threat
Yeah,
for sure. But then because the Xenon snipes, it wins a battle and that activates the Kirito's impact double damage. So I put that chump blocker up there just to block the double damage and only taking one of the two damages. That's
fantastic.
one of the things I always do is play chump blockers just to protect myself.
Fantastic. Now, Izarzan, do you have a specific set of cards you're looking for if you're mulliganing in order to handle this early game aggression? I know you have a lot of one of, two ofs in the deck, and a lot of them can be high tech. What are the ones that you think are the most pivotal in a matchup like this?
Yeah, funnily enough, in a big green deck, you honestly don't want to see your, you know, big stuff early, your 7 cost, your 6 cost. I kind of want like an ample low cost hand compared to, like just like a perfect energy curve, because I do want to play things out in the front, to get that defense going. Like my 1 cost Sinon that's 2500 and the 2 cost Sinon that has step and 3K. I do want those things, and I also do want to see a Siyun, because Siyun can still ramp me up in an effective way since it's 2 costs, and I'm still able to play those things up front.
Hey, now over on to you again, Div. Which cards do you think make the biggest impact in swinging tempo against Sinon's slower build up type strategy? What are the things that you think can allow you to, after the chip damage, finally close out the game?
The biggest impacts would definitely be my impact cards, pun intended. I would say the Tanjiro booster box one is good. The other one I think is really good is the 4500 starter deck Tanjiro raid, just because they won't be able to snipe it next turn either by raiding or by giving it their special because it's a 45k. So they have to tend to snipe something else and you end up saving a 4k for next turn. So I think those are the two I would say are biggest pieces. The Nezuko, I'm not too worried about as long as I find them. If I don't find them, that is the issue. If I find them, it's fine because even if I lose them, I have a way of bringing them back. But I think by having a raid Tanjiro is good because it helps you bring back that Nezuko, and then you can raid that Nezuko, and then you end up getting 5 swings that turn.
Mm. So you're looking to more go wide later into the game in order to
Yep.
get those last bits of chip damage. Now, back
Yep.
to you, Azarzan. Where do you feel your deck gains the edge in the matchup? What is the turning point where you're like, okay, I'm now in control of the game. I'm in control of the tempo.
I think at the turning point is when I'm able to have basically a full board, maybe 3 or 4 bodies, and I've able to go into like the main combo of the deck, which is the 6 cost Sinon and the 7 cost Kirito. That synergy does very well to be able to clear anything, because I am able to pump up the Sinon to 5,000, and maybe even like the 3 cost Sinon with the color trigger. If I also have the special, I'll be able to snipe and still have that aggression into life. So yeah, those are the main pieces. And yeah, I would say that that's the main thing is the 7 cost and the 6 cost.
Okay, fantastic. So, last thing we want to do, wrapping up this matchup in particular, is go over your initial anticipated win percentage of your respective deck versus the other one, and what you think it is after playing 3 matches. Who would like to go first?
I can go first.
All right.
Um, I definitely thought I would have gone 3-0, at least 2-1 with this deck, just because of how many swings I have and how fast this deck plays and how many swaps I have. I definitely thought it would be at least a 2-1, provided if I did see my Nezuko raids, that was what it would be leaning towards. But Union Arena is a high rollers game.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
We love it.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
So you were originally anticipating 60% to like
Yep.
40-ish.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And Azarzan, what was your original anticipation?
I also have like a similar mindset as him. My 5K doesn't really matter if he's attacking more than 4 times. It's just gonna block one thing, but he's still gonna be able to get in that last amount of damage.
Mhm.
And he still has his 3 cost Tanjiro, which it can buff up his 4K Tanjiro with impact into 5K. So I thought it was very favorable towards him. But I will say the GGO deck does filter a lot, and you kind of could see that in the game that I was able to go through my deck like really fast, and yeah, I was able to see a lot of my raids.
So, ending percentage, are we still 60% in favor of DS, or are we looking at different numbers now after the matches?
I will stick. I will still say yes. It is still 60%.
Okay.
Um, yeah, Lazarin played an amazing game. He had an answer to all of my raids and all of my plays. So that I would say shout out to the amazing opponent he is. But deck wise, I definitely think DS takes the edge.
Okay. Zarzan, are you in agreement or do you
Yeah.
want to dispute?
Oh, I agree personally because I think I'm beyond like what the average GGO player will be. Like I've put in enough games to be very comfortable, and I know enough of the matchup to understand like what the breaking point is.
You should be
So I
cresting
still
over
think
50 at
it's
this point, right? 50 matches with GGO?
yeah,
Okay.
I would say so. And like I said, I proxied it like before Union Arena even came out in English, so I
Yeah.
was I was kind of just playing around with it even before then. So
Oh wow.
yeah. And so that's what I mean. It's like I think it's still 60-40, average player versus average player. I think yeah, it's obviously like Tundra. We're obviously very good players, and literally like every single game was like very close, like 1 to 2 life difference.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you do have a slight edge, but based off of skill expression, it may close that gap a little bit to almost being in favor for GGO. That is great. Thank you guys very much for this part one, and look out for part two, where we then get to go over the trios and Rengoku, because he needs a special shout out, versus GGO. And part two, everybody. So now we are looking at a completely different matchup, but still similar types of aggressiveness is being displayed here. Div, you are going to be piloting the Rengoku Trio deck, as I like to call it. Though you have the deck labeled as Set Your Heart Ablaze, which is fantastic if you've seen the deck
Mhm.
itself. So Set Your Heart Ablaze plays fast and very hard against your opponent, similar to a rush deck, I believe. How do you describe its ideal role when sitting across from the average deck in Union Arena?
I would say rush. Honestly, as many pieces as I can put out. As you'll see in the first game, I put out 2 costs, shoved them up, put out another 2 costs. So I would say this deck is very heavy rush. Um, the way I like to play this deck is rush first, and then second, see what pieces you have on board, because this deck works heavily on what amazing things it can do, based on the characters you have on board. So if I have a Zenitsu, Inosuke, and a Tanjiro on board, I am set. So I always like to do that. So priority number one is rush, take at least 1 or 2 damage as soon as I hit turn 2 or turn 3. And then it's board setup so I can bring out my impactors, my double damages.
Okay. So when it's firing on all cylinders, what type of typical power turn do you like to take? What is that huge turn? Like, oh no, all my small things are dying. Now I'm actually going to throw danger damage at you.
Perfect. So what I'd like to do is, as long as I am 5 energy in the backline, my typical play would be raid the Zenitsu first because he has double damage and requires 5 energy. Now you have 4 energy in the back. You play a Rengoku up front, which has nullify impact, as well as your opponent cannot snipe your other cards. So forces the other, in this case, Xenon, to snipe the Rengoku itself, and then maybe play an AP restand to extend that turn by one, raid an Inosuke to which has an ability to restand a rested card to restand my Rengoku, and that way I have a double damager Zenitsu, an impactor Inosuke, and a nullify impact Rengoku 4K. So it's a lot of damage in that one turn. And the AP restand is in case I want to play a special to delete something, or just to play another card so I can manage my energy for next turn in case I hit a raid off my life, or not to brick myself the forthcoming turn.
So we've mentioned a lot of different characters. Are there cards that serve as your centerpiece, or is it more of a team effort across each of the different characters in this game in order to really allow the deck to take off and really win?
I would say having a Tanjiro is mandatory. Having a Tanjiro is super mandatory in this deck because the Inosuke restand is fine. If you don't have a Zenitsu, it's fine. You don't really, that restand doesn't matter that much. But having what Tanjiro does is give it impact. Similarly, for Zenitsu, if you have Tanjiro, it gains double damage, and its secondary effect is if you have an Inosuke, it's draw two trash ones. So it helps in milling. I would say having Tanjiro is very, very important, especially the one of the zero cost Tanjiro in this deck is a nullify impact. And with every other deck running impact now, it is really, really a good card for me. It actually saved me once from taking double damage, which was great. So having Tanjiro on board is definitely good. There is a very good Tanjiro that I run, which I unfortunately didn't see, is basically it's a 2 cost Tanjiro and you can rest it to give one of your characters 1,000. So I feel like if I had that, I could have bumped my 4K Inosuke to a 5K to cross the Kirito that I was facing.
Okay, now last question before we get into the specific matchup. How do you recover if the opponent stabilizes early and you can't rush the board as cleanly?
I drop my raids as vanilla up front just to protect myself. Sometimes I'll just drop them just because there are 4K bodies. NA meta is rush meta. So just place those 4K bodies. Sometimes they might actually help deal with some chump blockers because a lot of decks play out chump blockers, play out 3500s or 2500s, can bump them up to potentially a 3K, bump up the 1500s and 2Ks to 3Ks and 2500s. Your 4Ks are there for that reason to block. So that's another mindset I tell all of my player friends at locals as well as elsewhere. You don't always have to raid. You can play them vanilla. They will serve their purpose. Unfortunately, you couldn't raid, that's fine. Just play them vanilla because it helps.
4K is a 4K is a 4K, you know?
Yep.
All right. Now, on to the specific matchup. Izarzan. Set Your Heart Ablaze brings fast pressure. Do you have enough time to play your setup game, or do you need to get scrappy? And feel free to reference your current version of GGO if you would like to.
Yeah, I think in terms of Set Your Heart Ablaze, it's kind of a similar matchup to the Tanjiro Nezuko. Except there's a key difference. There's not a, the one cost Nezuko, which is I think is very strong for tempo because you're still able to set up those three costs early and then still get that aggressive damage by just switching them. So specifically for this matchup, it is more essential to try and get out those bodies early for defense. And the other thing is, obviously, one of the key things for the matchup is being able to clear the Rengoku as fast as you can, so that you're able to try and get as many like effective attacks as possible. Because it is nullify impact, and you're forced to snipe it.
Yep. Yep. Now for you, Div, Set Your Heart Ablaze wants to burn bright and fast. Very thematic. How do you approach the Sinon matchup? Which plays more reactively to what you are trying to do?
I'll say it again, and I know I'm repeating myself, but rush. It's definitely rush. The other thing, I want to get rid of that Kirito as fast as I can. Just because if I don't see my bento box or my other Tanjiro that bumps my characters by 1,000, that 5k body is gonna protect it from my impacts.
Yeah.
So and the only way, because this deck plays a lot of small characters fast, I would say getting rid of that 5k is top priority. So having a special in my hand to get rid of it, even though I have to discard a card sometimes, it's fine just because the amount of damage I'll be able to get through without that Kirito means a lot. Another thing is that Kirito has impact double damage, and because the Xenon has snipe or can be given snipe, the Kirito ends up getting impact double damage, which my opponent did really well of always making sure that the impact double damage was activated. So I needed to make sure that the Kirito was off the board.
Now, for you, Izarzan, how do you force bad trades out of Rengoku and his team without losing too much tempo yourself?
Yeah, very key aspect to force bad trades is to have, higher BP. And the GGO deck does very well in being able to increase certain things. Um, Unfortunately, with like the Rengoku, the Wen Sideline, it does give plus 1,000 to everything else. So I wasn't able to, truly force a bad trade every single turn. But it did still end up giving me value because he did have to block that Kirito, like you said, which is a very high priority target.
So one misplay we did have, and I realized it while we were recording. I didn't want to say anything about it. The Rengoku buffs a character by 1,000. He doesn't buff all of them by 1,000.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just it didn't actually make a difference in any of your matches, so I
Yeah.
didn't figure it was important to bring up. But it can make a difference in the future
got it,
for
got it.
other people. Yes. Now for you, Div, um, what card do you feel like lets you crack open GGO's control plan and put the pressure on before they can really start stabilizing? Do you have any of those silver bullets that just put your opponent in a hugely bad position?
I would say playing that 2 cost 2 AP Zenitsu to bring back the Rengoku kind of like means a lot just because always wanted to have the Rengoku on the board, and then using my Inosuke to activate it kind of really puts the GGO deck on a back foot just because most of the time I don't think my opponent expected me to have 3 swings that turn just because I needed to set up energy, I needed to set up board. But just having those 3 big swings, 35 or 4, or potentially a 4K for 3 4K swings does a lot to them, and they end up losing their Xenons sometimes or losing their raid fodder, which is their impact Xenon, which is the 3K gets bumped 1,000 gets impact. So they usually don't want to block with their Kirito. And even though they block with their Kirito, it's 5K, it won't die. So they end up blocking with their Xenon and kind of like helps me because one, cannot use snipe on them anymore, or number two, if it's a non-rated Xenon, cannot raid on it.
So back to you as Zarzan. Is there a point in the matchup where you feel safe enough to just drop your Sinons and start sniping? Or do you think in general you need to be more conservative and look for specific targets?
I think specifically for the Sinon, it is one of the only searchable raids. You can't really search the 7 cost Kirito.
Mhm.
So I'm a bit more free flowing with it. So in reality, like, if I see that I can get a tempo play out, if I can clear like a semi relevant body on board and then get in chip damage with like a smaller body, I will do it because I know that, with enough filtering and enough searching, I'll probably at least be able to get one more on raid. So yeah, that's how I play it.
Okay. Now, for you, Div, what is the danger of overcommitting in this matchup? Do you think that is something you have to look out for, or is it something that you can play around?
I think one of the things you can potentially overcommit is accidentally pushing the wrong card up front while rushing, because when you play rush, you kind of play fast. And unfortunately, I have done this a couple of times while playing this deck, is pushed my Tanjiro up or pushed my Inosuke up when it's the only Inosuke or Tanjiro on the board. And next turn, I either it gets deleted or I have to block with it. So I end up losing a key piece that I need to combo off. So making sure that you push the right cards up or you raid with the right cards is very key. Another thing is not seeing your double energy generators can really set you back, just because you can't raid the Zenitsu at all, because it's 5 energy. So that card helps you cycle through your deck, has double damage. So it's a very key piece. And if you don't see your double energy generators, it can kind of be painful. Most of the double energy generators in this deck are either the color trigger or a draw card or non-trigger. So them being in your life can kind of be painful.
Okay, now, last thing for us to discuss when it comes to this is going in, what was your original anticipation for the win percentage of each of the decks? And after the matches, how has that changed? Numerically, what are the values you would put them at? Let's start with you this time, Izarzan.
Just to preface this, I did forget that Rengoku, prevented sniping everything else. I didn't even think about it.
I think we
Um,
all did,
yeah,
except
yeah.
Div.
Which is funny because I'm probably gonna build it volume 2, the pure Rengoku deck,
Oh,
but
absolutely. Yeah.
it'll be fun. In terms of percentages, I think this deck is a rush deck, but it does tend to be on the higher side of the energy spectrum. It does have a 5 cost raid. There is other stuff that is like 5 cost, like the Rengoku that's 2 AP. So I would say it's more of like a more like mid range style. So I think it's like 55-45. I don't think it can be like 60-40 like Tanjiro Nezuko, just because it doesn't have as much of the low body rush effectiveness as the Tanjiro Nezuko.
Okay. And Div, what was your initial impression?
I thought it was 70-30 favoring Xenon.
Really?
I
Oh, really?
Wow.
I didn't think I could sneak a game in, honestly. It's just I think I sneaked the game in just because I think I saw a lot of my pieces. But against this matchup, I definitely thought Xenon has the upper hand. Just because I also play the Xenon deck, and the other members in Haven both play the Xenon deck. So I have a lot of, like, I've seen a lot of games with
Yeah.
Xenon.
Yeah.
Everyone at my locals is playing Xenon. So I kind of like knew what the Xenon deck does. So I definitely thought that it will be a complete wipeout.
Okay. And at the end, after playing these specific matchups, have we changed our opinions at all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think I have a little bit. I think this deck has a little more potential than I give it credit. So definitely going to build volume 2 for sure.
Awesome. Zarzan?
Yeah, I agree. I just from thinking about it, just like through my thought process of the game, it is favorable to Sinon because looking at it now, it's like it does prevent you from sniping other things, the Rengoku, but also that's more favorable using it like with Kurapika, because it only has one snipe target. And
Yeah.
then usually the Kurapika, like the other bodies on board, are usually sitting at like 3K maybe or 4K if you're lucky. And while like Sinon is, it's getting multiple, like 3K or 4K bodies, and then it pumps those bodies up even more. So the one sideline effect isn't as effective in terms of just blocking. So
And what do we think
yeah,
the final verdict on percentage is? Are we leaning on that 55-45, or are we looking at 60-50 or 60-40?
um, would you say it's in favor of GGO? So maybe like 60-40 favor GGO.
What? Div?
Um, I think GGO. Still, I'm gonna be on that GGO train. I still think GGO is. I'm gonna go with 70-30 for GGO.
70-30.
Wow.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, you're the one who plays against it. So, yeah. But that is going to be everything for us. Div, you have an event that you didn't shout out in the first part. Can you shout that out for us real quick?
Yeah, of course. So Haven TCG and Gaming is going to be doing a massive Black Clover and Bleach Volume 2 box tournament the first weekend of June, so June 7th. Tickets are on sale now. If you get 64 players, it's going to be a 6 box tournament. So we might get store sponsors to make it half a case tournament. We do have store sponsors, so we're going to be giving out winner cards, event packs, AP packs, and we'll also be doing raffles throughout the tournament. So if you follow our YouTube or Instagram pages, we'll be giving out raffles after every 2 rounds. So even if you don't think you can win, which everyone should think they will win, but even if you don't, even if you participate, you can get a raffle win, which is really good because it includes a lot of winner cards, release event cards, alt arts, the whole shebang. But yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And Azarzan, are you guys working on anything that you want to shout out as well over at Pirate Gaming? Bearded Pirate, sorry.
Yeah. Big Beard Pirates. So essentially we will be doing more content for each set. I'm very interested in the blue bleach deck, so I will be very much focused on that. And then some of our other associates, they've kind of put Union Arena on the back burner, but they're coming back now because their favorite deck, purple bleach, the Ichigo is coming back, so got to start playing that again. So we'll probably see more variety of games, not just me and another cohort. But yeah, and then obviously I'm very competitive, so you'll probably be seeing me at every regionals I can possibly go to, or like any webcam tourneys I'll probably be participating in. So yeah.
All right. And of course, I'm me. I'm here. You should follow and subscribe as well. You can follow them. They are down in the description below, already linked to their profiles. So thank you all very much and have a great time. See you around.